Hi there, lifelong wellness students. Today we're going to be discussing Unit 9 in your textbook, and Unit 9 deals with weight management. So the first thing I wanted to talk a little bit about was the energy balance theory of weight control. Energy in the world of nutrition comes in the form of calories. So if we are in what's called energy balance, that means the amount of calories we're ingesting are equivalent to the amount of calories we are burning off. So that means our weight is going to stay the same. That's considered an energy balance. As far as gaining weight, that is called a positive energy balance, meaning we're ingesting more calories on a day-to-day basis than our body is actually burning off. If we want to lose weight, we need to create what's called a negative energy balance, meaning we are burning off more calories on a day-to-day basis through physical activity, right? We're taking everyday opportunities to move our body as much as possible, and then we're ingesting fewer calories on a day-to-day basis, and that's going to create weight loss. So weight management really boils down to that energy balance theory of weight control. We have to take a look at how many calories am I ingesting on a day-to-day basis, and that can be done through detailed food logging, which you will be doing in this class here in the upcoming weeks. And then also figuring out how many calories on a day-to-day basis am I roughly burning off. And there are many different ways that we can calculate that number. Some easy ways are just to basically find a food tracker website, which you will be using for your diet analysis, and entering in some questions, basically answer some questions in a profile that you're creating for yourself. And then it's going to tell you roughly these are about how many calories your body is burning off in a day. So we'll be finding out those numbers here shortly. But as far as the recommendations, now this is from the National Institute of Health, but depending on your age and your gender and your activity status, the amount of calories you should be ingesting on a day-to-day basis is going to be quite different. So obviously, if you're very active, you can see the number of calories definitely is a lot higher than those folks who lead a pretty sedentary lifestyle. So take a look here and just kind of see where am I? Where do I fall on this table, and what are my energy needs? How many calories can I ingest in a day roughly that my body will most likely burn off? So, finding out those numbers are very, very important. So also, I wanted to take just a minute and look at, so here in our textbook on page 78, you do have a picture of your food label. Now, real quick, going back to that energy balance theory of weight control, I did want to point out that to lose 1 pound of fat, you have to burn off 3,500 calories. So that number right there should tell us all that weight loss does not happen overnight. Even though a lot of special diets, they make those claims to maybe, lose a large amount of weight in a short period of time, that's highly unrealistic that, number one, a person can actually do that, but number two, that it's actually fat weight that is being lost. If a person loses a large amount of weight in a very short period of time, chances are most of it's going to be water weight and even muscle mass that's sacrificed and not necessarily fat weight. So keeping that big number in mind, 3,500, we have to burn off quite a few calories to lose just 1 pound of fat. So that's why a safe and effective weight loss is around 1 pound to 2 maybe max per week. So if your goal is to lose 10 pounds, I would say give yourself 10 weeks to make that happen. And if you do it that way, it's going to be a slow process, but by the end of the 10 weeks, hopefully you have made a lifestyle change. Your dietary pattern is probably a heck of a lot better than it was when you started. And in addition to that, you've probably adapted a pretty decent exercise regimen to go along with it. And that's what we want, is we want to develop a lifestyle change. We want to change those behaviors. So let's take a look at our food label. And part of weight management is understanding how to read a food label. And I hope that you all take the time when you go to the grocery store and you buy your foods, you're looking at these nutrition facts panels, which is this rectangular box right here, and you're identifying some key things. And number one is looking at what is the actual serving size? And paying attention to that, because a lot of things come in multi-serving containers. So for example, this has actually 8 servings in the container because each serving is only 2/3 of a cup, but there's 230 calories in just one of these servings. So if somebody ate the whole container, you would have to take 230 and multiply it by 8 to get the total amount of calories we're consuming. So just understanding that not everything comes in single serving packages anymore. Many things, even that things that we grab and go, we eat the entire container, and we have to note that there are more than just one serving in that container, so the amount of calories per serving is definitely going to be a lot higher if we're eating the entire container or half the container or whatnot. So that's one thing that I really encourage folks to pay attention to, because portion control today is definitely out of control. Next thing I like to look at is fat. Total fat, and then you have a breakdown. 1 out of our 8 grams of fat are actually saturated, and it says there isn't any trans fats. So here it's nice because we can tell what type of fat are we ingesting. Now these are mandatory, they have to be listed on the food label. Voluntary things would be monounsaturated fat and polyunsaturated fat. So some of those food items that contain those smart fats, you will also see listed under here mono and poly. So if you look at your total fat breakdown, you can see how much of that fat is actually mono, how much of it is poly, how much of it is saturated. So remember, I had said in my last video that type of fat is way more important than total fat. So try to keep your bad fats at a minimum. So those would be your saturated and your trans fats, but your good and your smart fats, we can have a serving of those every single day, and that's actually heart healthy. Another thing to pay attention to is the carbohydrate. Here you can see there are 37 grams of carbohydrate. 12 of them are actually sugar, and then we also have an additional 10 grams of added sugars. And it's the added sugars that are wreaking havoc on Americans today. They're leading to high triglyceride levels, which in turn, can lead to maybe type 2 diabetes. They're leading to obesity. There's really not anything beneficial that comes from these added sugars. So this is giving us that information right up front. It's telling us how much added sugar is actually in a serving of this item. So this, is pretty high in sugar if you look at that. And then fiber is another important thing. Remember, we said 25 to 35 grams of fiber per day is recommended. So I want to get more bang for my buck. So I want to have something that's high in fiber per serving and relatively low in sugar. So paying attention to the types of carbohydrate and what you're ingesting there can be very helpful. Also over here, it's telling us percent daily value. So this is saying that if I ingest 1 serving of this, which is 2/3 cup, I'm going to be getting 10% of the daily value that is required of vitamin D. I'll be getting 15% of what's actually required for calcium. So it does give us these percent daily values and tells us how much we're getting, compared to what's recommended for that particular nutrient. So this nutrition facts panel is a wealth of information. It's something that we should be paying attention to and taking a minute to read. In addition, on our food labels, we have underneath, right under the bottom here, you'll see the list of ingredients. And ingredients are always listed in order of weight from what is contributed the most to the makeup and all the way down to the least. So I always say when you're looking at your list of ingredients, you don't want to see sugar anywhere within those first 3 ingredients. Also, the shorter the list, the better, indicating it's more natural. If we have a lot of additives and preservatives and things like that, you're going to see a big, long list of ingredients. And we know there's some negative impact associated with having, too many of these additives and preservatives in our diet. So watch your list of ingredients. Try to keep the amount of sugar at a low. If you're having starches or grains, try to have whole grain in there instead of enriched or bleached or white flours. Those are all things to look for on your food label, which is also kind of talked about over here, in those tips that we gave you as far as weight management goes. Also, I wanted to point out in your textbook, we did go through the 5 different food groups that comes from the ChooseMyPlate.gov website. So for each different food group, there's recommendations, and you can see here general recommendations for grains are around 6 ounces a day, vegetables 2.5, and so on and so forth. So now there's specific recommendations. So when we look at 6 ounces a day of grains, they tell us you need to have at least 3 out of those 6 being whole grains, right? They're high in fiber. The entire grain is intact, so that means it includes a lot of vitamins, B vitamins, and minerals as well. So we want to have at least 3 out of our 6 being whole grains. But then also, what is a serving? You know, what counts as an ounce in this group? So here they tell us that an ounce is equivalent to just 1 slice of bread, or an ounce is equivalent to 1 cup of ready-to-eat breakfast cereal, or even a half a cup of cooked rice, cooked cereal, or even cooked pasta. So that's an easy way for us to tell, oh, if I look at it that way, then I got X amount of ounces per day. So you're going to be doing this in your actual diet analysis. You're going to be identifying how many ounces did I get a day of grains, how many cups of vegetables, how many cups of fruit, and so on, and compare that to those general recommendations that are set for us. So here, this in your textbook is going to be very helpful when you're going through and doing your diet analysis to determine what does an ounce look like, what does a cup look like in comparison when we look at those different food groups. Also, we have just went through each different food group and giving you some ideas of some commonly eaten foods in that particular food group, things that are healthful and good for us. So I just wanted to point that out. That's in your textbook as well. So all 5 food groups are listed here. So again, going back to our tips that I was pointing out earlier as far as the weight management tips, I wanted to point these out here. Exercise, you can't afford not to. So being active every single day, take everyday opportunities to move your body, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, parking a little further away from a building, you know, all those extra steps, all that movement, that counts. It burns extra calories, and that's going to assist with weight loss. Be careful with your full fat products. Try to choose low fat if you can, or even fat free. Also, try to cut back on the soda and the juice because those are basically empty calories. They contain nothing but sugar, added sugar. So we know there's evidence that added sugars are definitely not good for our bodies. Be careful of, not getting enough fiber, making sure you're eating 5 to 9 servings a day of fruits and vegetables, right? Those are things that are going to definitely be very high in fiber. Try not to eat in your car if you don't have to. We don't pay attention to the task at hand when we're eating in our car, and we tend to eat more than what we actually planned on eating, or we make poor choices and just drive through fast food places, so try to stay away from doing that. Plan ahead. Pack your lunches, pack your snacks if you're going to be gone to work all day, for example. Plan and pack is what I always say. If you pack a healthy lunch, you're more likely to eat that healthy lunch than, say, go through the drive-through of a fast food restaurant. Make sure you're drinking a lot of water every single day. It is an essential nutrient. It's vital to every bodily function. Use a salad plate or a dessert plate at buffets. That way you're less likely to eat or overeat, right? So paying attention to stuff like that. Avoid that word enriched when you're looking at flours. And we don't want to have any enriched flours. We want 100% whole grain. Watch out for hydrogenated oils. Okay, so when you look in your list of ingredients, if you see these words, hydrogenated oils or partially hydrogenated vegetable oils, that means there are actually trans fats in it. And remember from my last video, I had said trans fats are the absolute worst type of fat you can ingest. And research shows that even as little as 2 grams of trans fats a day, we increase our likelihood of developing cardiovascular disease. So, lots of important things. Don't starve yourself, right? When many people want to lose weight, what do? They say, oh, I'm just going to starve myself. Actually, doing that slows the rate of fat loss and predisposes people to rapid weight gain. When you starve your body, your metabolism, which is the rate at which your body burns calories, slows right down to a halt. Okay, so you hardly burn any calories over the course of the day. So we have to eat to lose. Get up, eat a good healthy breakfast, have a mid-morning snack, have lunch. So you're eating 5 to 6 smaller meals spread evenly throughout the day, and that's going to assist with that weight loss that you're looking for. So just some tips on weight management. Think about that energy balance theory of weight control. Think about that big number, 3,500. Okay, that takes a lot of calories to lose just 1 pound of fat. So it's a slow process, and there's going to be peaks and valleys, ups and down in your weight loss journey if you choose to lose weight. But if you make lifestyle changes and you stick to those lifestyle changes, I know you will succeed.